There now is a bipartisan push to get to the bottom of how Jeffrey Epstein was able to take his own life in prison. The chairman and ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee have sent a letter to the Federal Bureau of Prisons demanding answers. French officials also calling for an investigation into Epstein's activities, since he also maintained a residence in Paris. And senior law enforcement officials tell NBC News the FBI is searching Epstein's home on his private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Joining us now, the investigative reporter who's been covering the Epstein case for the Miami Herald, Julie Brown. Also with us, legal scholar and advocate Jennifer Taub. She's author of Other People's Houses and also a professor at Vermont Law School. Good morning to you both. Julie, I'll start with you. You've, of course, been on this story. You're the reason this story is sitting in front of us because of your singular reporting. What's your reaction to the death of Jeffrey Epstein and that the prosecution continues, that we saw the FBI sort of swarm on his private island yesterday down in the Virgin Islands?
Well, you know, there's a lot of shock, just like everybody else. We wondered, from the start, how could somebody who allegedly tried to harm himself before be able to commit suicide? You would have thought, given his high-profile status with the Bureau of Prisons, that they would have been really keeping an eye on him. So it was really shocked that something like this would have happened.
And you've been talking to the victims for years, getting some of them to go on the record and tell their painful stories. Yeah. Have you spoken to any of them since Epstein died?
Yeah, they were the first people that I called, actually, and they were very distraught. And it's been an emotional roller coaster for them for over a decade. The fact that they hid this agreement from him to start with, and then as the years went on, fighting so long for justice and finally coming on the precipice of that with his arrest. So now to hear that he committed suicide is sort of a feeling that once again they've been betrayed by the criminal justice system.
Are they encouraged at all by prosecutors saying this case is not over for us? We're going to continue to fight for those victims?
Yeah, they are. They fully realize that there's other people that were involved in this. He had a whole staff of people who helped him lure girls and young women into this enterprise that he was running.
Jennifer, one of the terrible aspects of this is that once this news popped out, Jeffrey Epstein commits suicide, the lack of accountability, the lack of explanation in this era of social media, which is so powerful and so prevalent, it lends otherwise normal people to immediately go to conspiracy theories, and they're terribly destructive. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the level of destruction within our culture that is already suffering.
It's really tragic, and what's important right now are the victims here. We owe it to those victims to depoliticize this investigation. And I think the reason why people are turning to conspiracy theories, two reasons. First, they're seeing it from the top. As you know, the president is peddling these conspiracies through his Twitter feed. And also because there is now a lack of trust in, quite frankly, Attorney General Barr. It really is important, for the victims and to restore trust in our criminal justice system that he recuse himself from this investigation and let it be handled in a way that will restore confidence and do justice for these victims.
Julie, I ask you, just picking up on that point, the Attorney General was initially recused and then unrecused, even though his father hired Jeffrey Epstein at Dalton here in New York City. We have he looks to me like he is pointing a finger, saying, I'm not responsible for the Bureau of Prisons. These are systemic problems in this prison. People seem to have forgotten already that, the Republican Party, blamed Hillary Clinton for Benghazi for years. They said, the person who runs the Bureau is the one who's responsible. Right. So I ask, I guess, the question whether, from the standpoint of the victims and from others, whether you look at this and say, do people trust the Attorney General, who are involved in this case, to be thorough about investigating it, to be responsible, and to actually do the things that he now says he's committed to doing?
I don't think that they trust anybody really involved in the criminal justice system. I think they're hoping that U.S. Attorney Berman will take up this case, and he's made a promise to continue to pursue it. But I do think they more than most people realize how broken our system is, and Attorney General Barr really needs to understand that, and I do agree that maybe he should step aside and let someone else handle it, given the politicalization of what's happening right now with the case.
Julie, you've been following this story for ages. Where would you be focusing right now? One person I'd be interested to know where she is Ghislaine Maxwell. Prosecutors say they can't find her. Do you think she's somebody that they're going to try and now focus their attention on?
I don't know if that's true. I heard last night that they know where she is. I heard she's in London. And I have thought it all along. I don't think that they would have been so, I think that they would have paid attention to where she was going. So I think they know exactly
And they
where
can
she
go
is.
after her?
Yes, they should, because of all the evidence that's come out, especially in the release of documents just a couple of days ago. And there's a lot of damning evidence in there from corroborating witnesses and people who have seen her do what she did to help Mr. Epstein.
So, Jennifer, from your standpoint as a lawyer, where would you be looking next?
I agree with Julie. I would be looking at these co-conspirators, and I would be very interested in following the money here as well. Where did his money come from? Was this part of a larger extortion type crime?
Julie, your thoughts on the Bureau of Prisons, an almost totally unaccountable federal agency where they ship inmates around across country. They don't notify the families. The Bureau of Prisons.
Well, our prison system is very broken in this country. I covered prisons for 4 years before I undertook this story, and they're incredibly understaffed, and they're incredibly dangerous because they're understaffed. And also, when you're understaffed like that and you're working so many hours, you just can't pay attention to everybody, and you also tend to seep in corruption because you're tired and it's easier to look the other way. So I think that we really, if anything, this could be maybe a learning moment for our country to learn about how easy it is for corruption to seep into our prison system.
Difficult way to learn it, though. Julie Brown, Jennifer Taub, thank you so much. Julie, thank you for all your reporting on this from the beginning and always putting those victims first. Great to have you here. Coming up next, the Washington Post has been keeping the murder of Jamal Khashoggi in the headlines. Now the paper is drawing attention to the plight of another journalist. That story next on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.